Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced yesterday that the U.S. will begin revoking visas of some Chinese students, those with links to the Chinese Communist Party, and those in critical fields of study that can be exploited by the CCP. In the school year of 2023 and 2024, there were 270,000 international students from China, roughly a quarter of all foreign students in the U.S., second only to India in the number of students that they send to the U.S. Republican lawmakers have been calling for a tightening of Chinese influence in and connected to higher education in the U.S. because of national security concerns. Here to discuss this and more, Congressman Nathaniel Moran, who represents the 1st Congressional District of Texas. Congressman, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for taking time to join us today.
Hi, Tony. Great to be with you. I'm coming with you from deep East Texas in Sabine County.
Well, it's good to see you back in the district, and I'm sure folks are giving you an earful of things that they're concerned about. And, you know, this is one of those issues, and you serve on the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Maybe has it risen to the highest level of understanding, but it's one that those who know about it are concerned about it.
Yeah, it is. And part of the reason why it's not as visible as other issues is because China is doing this very quietly. They are just infiltrating our communities through quiet means, including through our educational institutions, and having students come over here on visas and study here and then engage in espionage. And it's a national security issue that we need to deal with.
Now, the Republican Congress has been holding hearings on this. We've been looking into it, and we have seen very clearly how the Chinese government has used its influence on these institutions. In fact, this was a part of the justification for cutting off Harvard from foreign students. I mean, how significant of a threat is this to national security?
Well, it's a very significant threat because we're talking about some of our top research institutions in the country, many of whom are engaged in research that impacts national security matters. And what happens is these institutions become reliant upon and dependent upon money and students coming from China to fund the research that they're wanting to take place, or to build buildings, or to do whatever's happening on the college campuses. And they like that. They like the dollars. And they're willing to then grant access to student data, to all kinds of things that are going on that China doesn't have any business knowing, including the research results. So they're taking our innovation and our technology out of our universities and back to China.
You know, I mentioned Harvard last week. Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, actually accused Harvard of, quote, coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party, citing some of the research collaborations that you mentioned with Chinese scholars.
Yeah, when you hear the rhetoric that's coming out of some of these long-standing research institutions in the United States, the rhetoric seems overtly anti-American, and they are cozying up to countries in this world that are not our allies, that do not have the same strategic interests as us. And that is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And now we're seeing the results of it because now technology in China is advancing as quickly or more quickly in a lot of areas than here in the United States. And it's because they're using our educational institutions to do a lot of that.
Now, I know we're focused on China, and during the first administration of the Trump presidency, the Education Department opened to 19 different investigations into foreign funding of U.S. universities, and they found that those universities are actually underreporting the foreign money that were flowing into those institutions. China, one of those, Russia, one of those. But we also have some of these countries in the Middle East that are putting money into these educational institutions. Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Are we concerned about that as well?
Well, we should be, and there should be lots of transparency. There needs to be more accountability for these universities. I was on the Education and Workforce Committee last session, and we had some hearings on this matter. And the problem was that the statutes that required reporting by these colleges and universities did not have any accountability teeth to them, so that if they didn't report them, and many of them did not report these contracts or the monies that they got from foreign entities of concern, then then what was happening was basically they would just apologize, and then they would continue to either underreport or not report at all. There needs to be some accountability to say, look, if you're not transparent about the money you're getting from any foreign entity, then we're going to stop the flow of any federal monies to your college or your university, or there's going to be additional civil or criminal penalties, because unless there's an enforcement mechanism, there will not be compliance by these universities that don't want to do it.
Congressman Moran, let me ask you about, switch gears a little bit here. I played this clip at the top of the program yesterday. The president responding to a question from a reporter regarding a conversation he had last week with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, asking him to hold off on striking Iran's nuclear facilities. What do we know about that?
Well, look, this is a big problem for us. I've said before on this program, and even going back into last year, how close Iran was to getting full nuclear capabilities to build a bomb. You know, the two targets are either going to be Israel or the United States, or both. I don't blame Israel for wanting to have strategic strikes on these nuclear facilities. In fact, I support that measure. I think that will send the greatest message to get the negotiation that we need. If the president is getting far in his negotiation with Iran, I understand potentially the request to hold off for a bit. But boy, they're within inches of getting a nuclear bomb, and we cannot allow that to happen. We can't. And a strategic strike or two or three on their nuclear facilities is what's going to be needed at some point in the future. Iran has proven that they are not trustworthy with negotiations. We've been down this road before, and we've been burnt by this before. And so I trust President Trump in negotiations as much as anybody. But we want to see some proof out of Iran, or we need to take quick action, or at least support action by Israel.
Well, underscoring your concerns that you've just expressed there, Congressman, I mean, I think Israel has been dispatching some of their top officials over to the United States to meet in the White House. I think, you know, this is all speculation because I'm not in the meetings, but sharing intelligence and information they have on the progress that Iran is making. And they seem to be pretty antsy that they need that the window to move is now, and it's not going to be there for very long.
Well, I'm glad they're sharing that intelligence. That's what we need to do. We've done that for decades with Israel, is to share that intelligence back and forth. There has to be a relationship of trust between the United States and Israel, because we are indeed the closest partners when it comes to national security in the Middle East. And that relationship can have no daylight between it. So I'm glad to hear that they're sharing the intelligence, and hopefully that will get us both on the same page. We have to walk in lockstep to push back against Iran.
Yeah, I think it's our most critical. Israel's our most critical ally in the Middle East, and we don't want any daylight between us. Congressman, just a couple minutes left. Congress has been out on the Memorial Day break. You return next week. You're on some of the money committees, the Ways and Means Committee. What's next when Congress returns next week?
We hope that the Senate will move quickly with the one big beautiful bill. I hope that there's just minor tweaks to it. There's some cleanup that needs to happen, certainly, but we want as small changes as possible so we can get it back through the House without disturbing that delicate balance to get it passed. We need to get it passed. We also need to, we're hopeful that the White House will send us a rescission package quickly so that we can rescind a lot of the money that was allocated and appropriated last year that we've identified through the DOGE efforts. We want to rescind that money and reduce our debt and deficit. We got to get on appropriations quickly because of what's to come in September. It's going to be a different set of challenges because of the need to hit the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, which is different from our reconciliation. But we've got to get reconciliation done and behind us by July 4th so that people can see the benefit of that rolling into 2026 and understand how good those economic policies are.
I think the White House heard your request, and I understand the rescission package is going to be waiting for the House when you return. 45 seconds left. Explain what that is to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, a rescission package is it's a mechanism for the White House, the executive branch, to say, hey, Congress, I know you've appropriated this money to us, but we would like for you to rescind it, to take it back. And until we do that formally, the cuts cannot be realized. And that's what we want to do. But it's got to start with the White House. It's got to be initiated with them so that we can avoid the 60-vote threshold in the Senate. If we try to send another package to the Senate that originates in the House without coming from as a formal request from the White House, then we have to get past that 60-vote threshold in the Senate. That would be impossible to do. You know, the Democrats aren't going to vote for that.
Well, that should be something that all conservatives are cheering. It's something they don't hear very often, that the government's actually going to cut spending. Music to our ears. Congressman, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
My pleasure, Tony. Have a great afternoon, okay?
Will do.